My name is Randall Cohn. I am a Immigration and Refugee.
It needs to be louder. I'm going to turn up the volume. Yeah. Can you
Okay, help
hold this for
start
me?
again then. Is this better? Okay. Is this better? Okay. So once again, good morning everybody, and thank you for being here on the National Day of Action. My name is Randall Cohn. I am a Canadian immigration and refugee lawyer working here in Vancouver. In the weeks immediately after October 7 last year, Global Affairs Canada facilitated the evacuation of Canadians and their immediate families from Israel and from Palestine. For a few weeks during the initial bombardment, nobody was getting out of Gaza, but by November, Canada had provided a list of names, including spouses and children who did not themselves have any status in Canada at that time, to the Israeli and Egyptian authorities. Those from the list who were allowed to leave at that time had their visas processed quickly at the embassy in Cairo, and they were reunited with their families in Canada in a matter of days. The definition of immediate family that Canada was using to identify people for the list, however, was limited only to spouses and minor children, and it was woefully inadequate. My colleagues and I fielded call after call from Palestinian Canadians who hoped to bring their mothers, their fathers, their sisters, brothers, grandparents, adult children, and grandchildren to safety as well. We worked with community leaders, advocacy organizations, and members of parliament to raise this concern with the government. And just days before Christmas last year, the Minister of Immigration announced a special measure allowing a pathway for temporary residence in Canada for an expanded group of family members. But the special measure was fraught with problems from the very outset. It was cruelly and absurdly originally limited to 1,000 total applicants, with families forced to compete against one another to submit requests on a first-come, first-served basis to receive special application codes. The instructions for this step were confusing, and many of the first applications that were entirely compliant with the instructions were refused in error because no standardized system for evaluating them had been put in place. Facing criticism, the minister quickly backed down from the cap on applications. But IRCC continued to use the two-step application process and to issue codes before family members could apply. And many families are still waiting to receive these codes. Those who did receive codes were given instructions about how to complete a full application that required the family members in Gaza to provide comprehensive personal histories, links to social media accounts, descriptions of how they received all of the scars on their bodies. These instructions asked for a level of detail and documentation that I have never seen before as part of a paper-based visa application process in Canada. Those who diligently completed this paperwork, often sorting through rubble and sending back images to their families in Canada during rare moments of access to communication networks, received the same email that all applicants for Canadian visas receive, instructing them to attend a biometrics appointment for the collection of their pictures and their fingerprints at the local visa processing center within 30 days. The closest visa processing center is in Cairo. During the spring, when the Rafah border crossing was tightly controlled but still technically open, desperate Palestinian Canadians liquidated their savings and maxed out their credit to pay bribes of up to $25,000 US per person to smuggle their family members into Egypt. That ended when Israel shut down the Rafah crossing in May. Some of those who made it out showed up to their biometrics appointments, but still waited without status in Egypt for months while their applications continued to process, and many of them are still there. Family members from Gaza who happened to be elsewhere on October 7th, but were otherwise eligible for the special measures, were not issued codes, and instead received instructions directly from the Minister of Immigration's office that if they apply for tourist visas through the normal process, their applications would be expedited and given special consideration. Many of those applications are still pending, and many have been refused with little explanation. Meanwhile, applicants occasionally receive additional requests for documents, more detailed address and work histories, proof of marriages and births and deaths, request after request. In at least a few cases that I have seen personally, doctors and nurses were asked whether they had ever provided medical care to Hamas members. And when? In October 2024, 10 devastating months after the program was announced, IRCC claimed that 4,245 applicants have been accepted for processing, and 334 people have arrived in Canada through this program, although I cannot verify those numbers. By contrast, Canada has now approved more than 960,000 applications for temporary residence for Ukraine, and just under 300,000 are currently living, working, and attending school here in Canada. Now, the circumstances and the programs themselves are meaningfully different. Ukrainians are free to travel, while Gazans are living under siege. The Canadian government cannot be held responsible for that difference. It can, however, and it must be, held responsible for unconscionable delays, for incompetence that has been effectively weaponized to ensure that this program would never succeed at scale. This is how racism and Islamophobia often operate in our broken immigration system and in Canada generally. The banal violence obscured behind an impenetrable bureaucracy that only works for some kind of people. Today, you are going to hear from 3 Canadian Palestinians who, like many of my clients, are still waiting for answers and still hoping that Canada's leaders
they're on camera
will
now.
find the courage
They're
to
on a shot
demand
of those
that
cameras.
Israel
Right there,
release
right now.
the families of its citizens and permanent residents from this 13-month siege and bring them to temporary safety here in Canada. So first, I would like to introduce Saadiya Joha, who is going to have her remarks read by Arwa Shurab.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Arwa Shurab. I'm a Palestinian, and I'm here today in solidarity with all the Palestinian families who are torn apart by this relentless killing machine in Gaza. I will be reading Saadiya Joha's statement. This is Saadiya. My name is Saadiya Joha, and I am here today as a Canadian deeply burdened by the unrelenting crisis in Gaza, a crisis that has consumed my family and left me feeling helpless. My family's reality in Gaza is one of unimaginable pain, and I cannot stay silent. Every day I watch the news, hoping for a sign that they are safe, and each update reminds me of the unimaginable suffering they and so many others are enduring. The constant worry, the anxiety over their well-being, and the feeling of being powerless to help them has created a constant emotional weight on my shoulders. It's difficult to focus on anything else, knowing that my loved ones are living in constant danger, uncertain of where the next bomb will fall, or if they will make it through the night. The pain of not being able to reach out to them, to hold them, or to offer even the smallest comfort in the face of such terror has left me feeling isolated. My father is a heart patient and diabetic, surviving without access to medication. My sister Kamers, who is suffering from illness, her home has been reduced to rubble, and yet she continues to live there with her family, because they have nowhere else to go. Last week, my other sister woke up in her tent to find a ravenous wild dog prowling inside, attacking her young daughter. Imagine the terror of shielding your child from such a threat in the only shelter you have left, a fragile tent, offering no safety from predators or the brutal elements. Another sister, Samah, gave birth in a tent and is raising her 3 children under the most harrowing conditions. They struggle daily with extreme cold and complete lack of basic necessities. Her children are always pleading with me to save them, their small voices full of fear and desperation. How do I answer them when I cannot guarantee their safety or offer them the help they so desperately need? I have applied for a temporary visa for my father and siblings. Newly, I received codes for the 3 families, my father and 2 of my sisters with their families. However, I am still waiting codes for my other siblings, 7 people who have been waiting 10 months just to start the application process. All my family members remain trapped, unable to escape the relentless violence because of bureaucratic delays. Every day, the situation worsens. Children are going without food. The sick are going without medicine. The injured are going without care. My nephew Bilal, 16 years, who is deaf, urgently needs insulin, and his health is deteriorating by the day. I am asking for something simple, compassion in action. There are lives at stake, mothers, fathers, children. I am urgently appealing to all human rights and child advocacy organizations to help the people of Gaza and to assist my family before it's too late. Thank you.
I think we were just joined by Nariman Ajjur, and she's going to speak next.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Nariman Ajjur, and I am here to demand accountability from the Canadian government for failing to evacuate my family from Gaza, despite promises made 10 months ago. For the past 13 months, my family has been trapped in Gaza, enduring unimaginable suffering, starvation, lack of clean water and medical care, destruction of homes, displacement, and loss of loved ones. During this time, I have lost my brother Mohammed, my grandmother, 2 uncles, an aunt, and 4 cousins. 3 of them were killed with the whole family. When Rafah crossing briefly opened in November 2023, I contacted the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, pleading for my family evacuation. I was told they were not eligible because they were not considered my direct family. I refused to accept this and reached out to every official I could, seeking a solution. On December 25th, 2023, the Minister of Immigration announced a program to reunite families and promised to facilitate evacuations from Gaza. This gave us hope, especially for my sister-in-law, Izdihar, who has already lost her husband, my brother, her father, and 4 brothers. She held tightly to the hope of saving her 2-year-old son, Khaled, my nephew. By January 10th, 2024, I had submitted the applications, but we waited 3 months just to receive unique codes required to begin the visa process. On April 16th, we finally received the codes for Khaled and his mother, and we immediately submitted their visa application. In our submission, we included the hospital report and an explanation of why obtaining a formal death certificate for my brother was impossible under these circumstances. Despite the extensive requirements imposed by the IRCC, such as providing employment history for my elderly father since the age of 16, documenting scars and body marks, and navigating the process amidst Gaza unreliable internet and network, I successfully collected all the necessary information and applied for them. In August, the IRCC rejected the documentation, demanding a death certificate, a near impossible request in Gaza. Imagine the anguish of my sister-in-law Izdihar as she left Khaled with her newly disabled mother to navigate a devastated Gaza, running from hospitals filled with the dead and injured bodies, and queuing for days just to secure a temporary death certificate. She endured this hardship with the faint hope that it might lead to their rescue. Today, and despite my tireless advocacy with officials, Member of Parliament, and government department, I have seen no concrete action, and none of my family members have been evacuated. Khalid, Izdihar, and the rest of my family remained trapped in Gaza, clinging to the promise that Canada would help. Today, I stand before you, not as a grieving sister and daughter, but as a Canadian resident demanding justice and action. I urge the Canadian government to fulfill its promise and uphold its moral and humanitarian obligation. My family cannot wait any longer. Thank you.
Next, we're going to hear from Mohammed Alzaza.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone.
Good
Thank
morning.
you for listening to my story and for a member of Gazan community and our Jewish friends. My name is Mohammed Alzaza. Since October 7, 23, I had 4 major surgeries here in Vancouver. That's before of the damage caused by an Israel drone missile. I survived the attack in 2011 in Gaza when I was 15. I had 34 surgeries in total, and I continue to recover every day. I have Canadian PR. I get to school and I attend my medical by physiotherapy appointments every day. And I hope my community, and I help my community worldwide, grinding from my family and the destruction of my homeland. Since I started my TRV application in January 24, my team has spent hundreds of hours worldwide on the IRCC Gazan crisis part. This to help complete application for my family member who are trapped in Gaza. They have no access to shelter, food, or hope. My only wish is that they can arrive in Canada and experience some safety after 14 months of an endless nightmare. My family home was destroyed early in the war, and they lost everything. Most days they conduct electricity to charge her phones or connection to contact me, let alone send photos or countless documents that RRCC requires, such as IDs, details, work histories, school, diploma, even date certificates. Still, every document we have submitted, uploaded, translated, certified, and authorized IRCC has met more impossible requests and dealt my application for clear reasons. I have lost 2 brothers in Gaza while they waited for their TRV to be accepted. I don't know who could be next. My mother, my father, my sister, my another brother. Her application is dealt because the IRCC insists and used to send her birth certificate from the Palestinian Authority. Every day, I fear my family could die from missile attack like the one I survived or slowly from starvation. Canada has legal and moral responsibility to act. Well, innocent civilians in Gaza suffer the most terrible things possible. The Canadian government provides planned support to Israel and in conflict in this brutality. But it's not too late to change that at the every list. Canada must save the innocent families who are suffering as a result. Global offer Canada must pressure Israel and Egypt government to open the border. Thousands of civilians are trapped under constant bombings, starvation, and destruction of everything they have none. They are ordinary people just like me and you. They live in dignity. And they want to experience some safety and return to Gaza when it's safe to do so. I'm urging to government officials and the IRCC to do everything necessary to save my family and others like them before it's too late. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now we're going to hear for a moment from Naiman, who's here with Independent Jewish Voices.
Thank you very much. I'm very honored to be here, especially with Mohammed, who we've known. Independent Jewish Voices has been working for a long time to bring Mohammed here to Canada. And when he arrived in February of last year, we have been doing our best to support him with all his medical and daily needs. But as you can see, how can somebody continue to heal when he grieves every single day for his family left in Gaza, wondering on a daily basis whether or not they'll survive? So Mohammed is amazing, but he's just one story. There are thousands like him. He's lucky to be here, but we need to bring more. So, on this National Day of Action for Gaza Family Reunification, Independent Jewish Voices Vancouver calls on the Canadian government to honor its commitment to expedite temporary residence visa applications for Palestinians trapped in Gaza. Last week, a UN Special Committee found that Israel's actions were consistent with the characteristics of genocide due to its siege on Gaza, targeted killings of civilians and aid workers, obstruction of humanitarian aid, and its intentional use of starvation as a method of war and collective punishment. This committee is the latest in a long series of independent UN reports and investigations that underscore the constant mortal danger that Gazans face every day. The Canadian government should be lifting all diplomatic levers and making it as easy as possible for Palestinian Canadians' loved ones to escape starvation and genocide in Gaza, where Israel has nearly obliterated government and healthcare facilities. Instead, the government's temporary residence visa program for Gazans is an obstacle course of insurmountable logistical and financial burdens, such as medical exams and biometric data. As Jewish people, we remember Canada's anti-Semitic immigration policies of the 1930s and 40s
that kept Jews fleeing pogroms and the Holocaust in mortal danger. Many of us are here today because these policies were eventually relaxed so that our parents and grandparents could immigrate to safety. We are here today because our history as Jewish people means that we have a duty to fight for justice and safety for Palestinians. The Canadian government needs to take urgent action and effective measures so that families in Gaza can escape temporarily to Canada in order to survive until they are able to return home safely. We saw these measures work when the government launched a program in 2022 to help Ukrainians escape to Canada and took urgent efforts to evacuate Israelis to Canada. We condemn the systemic anti-Palestinian racism that is glaringly obvious. Jewish and Palestinian safety is intertwined and interdependent. We refuse to subscribe to a narrative built by the pro-Israel lobby that pits us against Palestinians. We refuse to see more Palestinian children die because the government of Canada has designed a program that was destined to fail in an attempt to appease critics.
Shame.
We demand that the government of Canada reform the TRV program so that Palestinians can survive.
Woo! Woo!
Thank you all for being here. Thank all of you for being here and for sharing your stories. Before we close, I want to emphasize that while it is true that Canada does not itself have the authority to open ports of entry in foreign territory, or to allow any individual person to have passage from Gaza, Canada does have the sovereign authority to approve these applications pending biometrics for those who are still in Gaza. It does have the authority to issue visas without delay for those who are living without durable status outside of Gaza, to invite all of those who would qualify under the program to complete their applications, and to communicate honestly and proactively with citizens and residents who have trusted that this program was created in good faith. Please spread the word, talk to your members of parliament, organize in your communities, and continue to hold this government to account. And may we all one day live in safety and dignity.